switched on meta ban in the Xayah.
Rakan is something IgNar can play as well, though, and you wonder if Unicorns will first pick it if it does get through. They will remove the Cho'Gath. Unicorns decided they did not want to face Alphari's Gnar once again and take that one off the boards, and now Unicorns have a decision to make for this first pick.
Yeah, you would expect them to go for either the Xayah or the Rakan because it's the combo that makes it so strong, and given that Xayah can work with a number of different supports, Unicorns are more comfortable to just lock that in now, and now it's forcing Misfits to make a decision. Do they lock in Rakan with a less optimal AD carry, or do they let it through and give the Unicorns of Love bottom lane much more of a comfort setup?
They did play incredibly well with the Tristana last time as well, so Misfits do still have that AD carry option there. They will take the Rakan, looking perhaps towards securing an AD carry on this first phase.
Oh, and they're going to go for an early Tristana as well. I thought that they might go for the Gragas here, but they still want to leave the option open to get the Xayah a little bit later on. Now remember that Cassio is still available. It's a strong blind pick for PowerOfEvil, but Unicorns of Love, they're now covering their eyes on that successful Xayah pick that worked out very nicely for Maxlore in Game 1.
Xerxe has only played one Xayah game prior to this in the summer split, but has been banned out so often as well.
But also remember back in spring, Xerxe was playing Xayah before it was even meta. He was the one playing Ivern, Rumble, Xayah, all these champions that were a little unconventional, but he somehow made work. And while Xayah was one of his weaker performing junglers, it was still something that he's played a lot in the past. While Chachi gets a big comfort pick for him.
We talked about comfort picks in the first ban phase, and once again we see them rattling through here for the Unicorns. That Shen, Chachi just seems to be able to make it do things that other players aren't able to do with it. He 1v1s people in lane, he takes down solo pushers. He's incredibly powerful on it. Misfits will need to find an answer if they're going to weather that storm.
I feel like they're thinking about the Gragas right now or the Poppy now. The thing about Poppy is, yes, you can put it in the jungle, but you can also put it in the top lane. I believe we saw it in the promotion tournament just this week, being sent up to the top lane, and her disengage power along with the W, I forget the name
Steadfast
of it.
Presence.
The Steadfast Presence. It blocks dashes, so against Xayah and against Shen, extremely potent. So they've locked it in, and the question is how well can they use it and where are they going to put it?
It is something Alphari used to play a lot in the UK. So I would not be surprised at all if they do put it up towards the top lane. Depends if Maxlore's been playing it, but he tends to thrive a little bit more on those early aggressive junglers that can team up with IgNar. We are going to see the Syndra ban here from Misfits. Unicorns looking for their set of bans.
So in the previous game, Unicorns of Love, they banned away Janna and Thresh. There's no need to do that because they've already obviously locked in the support. So now they'd be looking at mid laners is what I would assume. No surprise that the Cassio gets taken away from PowerOfEvil. They could also look to take away the Taliyah, who did receive some nerfs on this patch, but still a very strong pick, still very favorable over in Korea.
And it is no surprise that PowerOfEvil gets his Cassiopeia taken away, but he didn't really have that much impact on it in Game 1. He allowed the rest of the team to carry. So there's a bit of perspective here from the Unicorn saying that we know PowerOfEvil is perhaps the most consistent player on Misfits, and we want to take away some of his more comfortable selections. Alistair taken away by Misfits, looking to shut down that Unicorns of Love bottom lane.
So now we're looking at possible final bans. The Blanc ban, Syndra ban, Cassio ban, ooh, the Galio banned away as well. So Unicorns of Love also unsure about where that Poppy could be going, saying that the Galio could be mid, could be top. Still showing some respect towards PowerOfEvil as well.
How are you looking to round out these two compositions, Vedius? Misfits probably looking for a jungler and a mid laner. Unicorns looking for the jungler and the mid laner and the support.
So Misfits, I was going to say that right now one of the big things that they lack is follow-up for the Rakan. And when you lock in a Lucian, something that I've been having a lot of discussions with a bunch of different analysts, and Officio, is that Lucian is a really strong mid laner right now. Very few answers to the Lucian. He has a lot of pressure in the 1 versus 1. He has a really strong mid-game spike, and he can still be very valuable in teamfights along with being that side lane threat. The problem is he's very difficult to play around. Remember that he is an AD carry. He doesn't offer any utility at all. And as a champion, yes, he's strong when he's alone, but in the full 5v5, you'd still rather have an alternative mid laner like the Talia or something with a little bit more utility like a Victor or something along those lines. So there's a bit of risk running him, and I think it requires a lot of teamwork and coordination to properly pull it off. I am surprised they would pick a Kassadin into it, because if I was playing this matchup and I saw a Kassadin on the other side, I would pick the Lucian into that. I think that this is a very risky pick from the side of Unicorns of Love. What I can say is that they are going very Unicorns of Love style. Very team fight, very scaling. They want to play a slow early game, transition nicely into the late. They have an ability to force fights. They can play the 1-3-1, but their early game will be lacking. And that's where Misfits have the big advantage, as we just found out where that Poppy is going.
It's going to be a rumble in the top lane for Alphari, playing what Vizicsacsi was able to win the lane with in the last game. It's Braum, Xayah bottom lane, and as you said, the Kassadin was locked in as well for the Unicorns of Love. A difficult matchup perhaps for Exileh in the mid lane. Still a lot for him to prove after a disappointing split, to say the least.
Yeah. We'll definitely be keeping track of that. I'm excited. It's game 2, very convincing game 1 from the side of Misfits. Bit of a slow early game, but it certainly ramped up towards the later part of it. We did get those fights that I promised you, Medic, and I'm looking forward to more, except this time it will be Unicorns of Love that'll be the driving force behind making those fights happen.
And if you want to get involved, make sure you jump on Twitter at LOL eSports. If you think the Unicorns of Love are going to equalize the series, hashtag UOL win. And if you think Misfits Gaming will go 2-0 up and be 1 win away from the semi-finals, hashtag MSF win. Vedius, the Rift calls for us once again. It calls indeed for Exileh, the Kassadin in the mid lane. He will be trying to Rift walk over his opposition, but the Misfits stand in his way. And they say, not today, Unicorns, not today.
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, best of 5. This is a quarter-final. The winner will move on to the semis.
And face Fnatic.
Or H2K in the instance of Misfits. But as you rightly said, if you're the Unicorns of Love and you win this series, you will only face Fnatic. That's your only option. Whereas Misfits, their opponent will depend on the winner of tomorrow's quarterfinal between G2 and Splice. So all the information is available on all eSports. You can go check that out.
And the analyst desk will tell us when results come in as well. When we know who's playing whom, we will make sure to keep you guys informed. Vedius, I want to talk about this Misfits lineup just to extend on the compositional discussion we were having in picks and bans. You said the Unicorns of Love are looking for team fighting, a slower early game. Are the Misfits happy if we have that slow early game once again?
No, they are not, Medic. They want to be trying to make stuff happen, especially around this Lucian. Pretty much the comps have reversed, because it's all about trying to get this Lucian ahead. And that doesn't mean it's the same as a talent, right? That doesn't mean you need to gank his lane so that he snowballs, so that he can roam around the map and get kills everywhere. He just has to have pressure. He needs to be the one that's pushing the Kassadin underneath his tower. He needs to be the one that works with Maxlore to get that deep vision down. So that, remember, a lot of the control we talked about in game 1 was coming out from Unicorns of Love. Even though they were at a goal deficit, they were the ones that owned the river. They were the ones that seemed to be forcing Misfits to react, and it should be Misfits doing that this time around. They should be the ones that control the tempo of the game. They should be the ones dictating how things go.
The Unicorns of Love have had a turbulent affair in playoffs across the last couple of years. They came in very strong, second place, and then since then have been middling in the middle of the pack, 4th and 5th across the course of the last couple of years. And then this year, they seem to have stepped up a little bit, Vedius. They seem to have developed as a squad, more experience across their members. Second place in spring, looking to perhaps repeat that performance in summer.
It's quite an interesting history of development for the Unicorns of Love, because what we have to remember is that this organization has had roster changes after roster changes after roster changes. Every time things start to look good, they lose a player, maybe even 2, and they have to start rebuilding again. And with the end of 2016 and coming into 2017, they've been able to maintain a stable roster. They've been able to work with them and grow this team from its foundations and develop it into what it is today. And they're on track to having their best year ever in the LCS, and their icing on the cake for the Unicorns of Love would be making it to Worlds. Xerxe and Hylissang have been playing competitively for so many years, and they want that opportunity to play on the world stage, see how they stack up against the world's best. And with this squad that they have, this is their best chance to do it, but they have to get through Misfits, and They have their 1-year goal. They have their own plans in mind.
Exactly. Both teams have said very obviously that they are looking for Worlds this year. Misfits came in as an organization and said, we've got a 1-year plan. We're going to make Worlds this year. We're going to make Worlds in 2017. The Unicorns of Love have said, it's difficult for us after so many average splits. We need to look towards that world spot, and we need to play around the mid lane, say Misfits, as the knockback onto Exileh. He flashes, but it's first blood in the mid lane, and Misfits do exactly what we want them to.
Perfect gank from Misfits. Maxlore, he started blue, he did a full clear, went up to red, invaded enemy blue. He got vision of where Xerxe is, he dropped that ward. You can just see it next to the blue buff. And then, even though Unicorns knew where Maxlore was, and Exileh started to play a little bit cautiously, he still ends up falling prey to the early gank. Maxlore pushes up top, that gives him priority to come help Maxlore down, and another fantastic early game for the Misfits.
Alphari with the push in the top lane has been a pretty strong performance over the last game and a half. Really struggled throughout the split though. Wasn't really able to put into effect the devastating pressure that we've seen him do in previous splits.
And while we can talk a lot about the top lane, we've got to focus in on how this mid lane matchup goes, because we wanted to see these early ganks, and I wasn't expecting it from a Poppy, but knowing how PowerOfEvil is the one to take the initial aggro. They then knock Exileh away from the tower so that when he flashes in, PowerOfEvil is still in range to shut him down. Extremely well executed. That's going to give him so much pressure in the mid lane. Already completed the Vamp Scepter, which is so crucial for mid lane Lucian. This is just great to see. Medic. I love seeing when we talk about a team, we talk about these are their weaknesses or this is what the team needs to do, and then they go and do it. It's just a great recognition that the team realizes what they need to do to win, and they're trying to take advantage of that.
You just like it when you're right.
I do like it. I hang around Officio way too much.
Well, we all like it when we're right, and PowerOfEvil actually on the right side of this mid lane at the moment. He has been such a consistent performer for Misfits as well. Across the course of the split has been topping the charts, Vedius.
Yeah, and this is why when we had that MVP discussion, you always had to have PowerOfEvil in the back of your mind, right? It's very difficult to where to put him. And, you know, when we had those top LCS mid laners, the all-star teams that made it through, you had Caps, Febiven, and Perks up there, but PowerOfEvil has also been one of those extremely consistent mid lane performers, someone that has never really been a detriment to his team, whereas you can't really say the same for Exileh. Early on the split, he did struggle. It took him a while to find his footing once again. He was really struggling in terms of champion pool and what was the best thing for him to play, and he could be punished once again in the mid.
Xerxe's just around the corner. Exileh not yet. Six does just hit it. Has the Rift Walk now. It can jump away. Exileh is going to be able to escape from the gank in the mid lane.
So a repeat gank there from Misfits. Exileh, if he was not 6, that could have ended in disaster, but fortunately he had that mobility to escape. And now Misfits, they're off. They're going to continue to exert pressure down to Kassadin. The scariest thing about Kassadin is him in the late game. You do not want him to get there. So if you can, you murder him a lot in the early game. You make sure that he has no gold, and then he has no murder weapons to kill you with.
Does become difficult to lock him down though with the Rift Walk. You have got a Poppy who can use the Steadfast Presence. You've got a bit of chase from PowerOfEvil as well. But it's going to be harder for them to actually shut him down now. Across the rest of the lanes, it's very even between these two teams. Only mid lane really giving them that advantage. About 1,000 gold ahead for Misfits at the moment. And as you can see, 800 of that is on PowerOfEvil over Exileh.
Yeah, he's built up a pretty significant CS lead. He got that first blood as well. And PowerOfEvil playing this 1v1 matchup extremely well.
So how do we transition this? If you're Misfits, if you're Hylissang sitting backstage, you're saying, okay, we've done what we want to do in the early game. How do we transition this into the next portion of the game? And if you're Unicorns, how do you react?
Okay, so with Misfits first, ideally what you want is to take this mid lane tower down as quickly as possible. So you bring Maxlore, maybe even have Alphari roam down, and you invest as many resources as you can to take this tower away from the Kassadin, because he wants to be passive, he wants to scale up. He's very reliant on items, he's reliant on levels, and all these things come from having a tower from which you can safely farm under. Misfits, they need to open the map more, and so what PowerOfEvil is going to do is he's going to keep pushing, slowly chip away that tower, and when it gets low, they're going to look to take it. With the map opened up, then you can start moving the strong Lucian to these other side lanes, where you can use that gold lead in other parts of the map. Whereas the Unicorns of Love, They need to stop that happening from all costs. They need Kassadin to have somewhere safe that you can keep farming up. They want to try and utilize the Shen and Xerxe on the Zac to try and mitigate that as much as possible so that when Misfits come in the mid lane, when they try and set something up, there is a Shen there to answer. Maybe they go for a reactive play themselves. It is definitely much harder for them, but they just need time. So there's still a lot of onus on Misfits to make something happen now, because if they don't, scaling is definitely in the favor of Unicorn.
Misfits have been able to extend that gold ever so slightly, but it's not a monumental disadvantage for the Unicorns. IgNar and Hylissang are going aggressive in the bottom lane as the Winter's Bite comes out. Hylissang is still able to get some damage down, but it's not the early kills we expected to see. Xerxe gets the stretching strike onto PoE, the knockback from Maxlore, Ignite on Exileh. Stand United comes in, the Let's Bounce knocks him back. The TP is going to join the fray as Alphari's there. Vizicsacsi takes down PoE, but Maxlore and Alphari get one in response. Chachi's going to run away as IgNar's joined the fight, and the Misfits will have to just trade 1 for 1.
Medic, you always set me up so perfectly, because what you talked about
with women,
no, with League of Legends,
oh,
with League of Legends, because what we wanted to see was Unicorns of Love try and make something happen to stop PowerOfEvil being able to take down this tower. They knew that they were going to lose it eventually, so they had Xerxe come in for a gank in mid, and then they knew that they had the Shen ultimate to back him up, so they could instantly turn it into a 3 versus 2. So look here, you can see Maxlore, he's lying in wait. He knows this is going to happen, but there's no way they're going to be able to win out on this, because there's the Shen ult to turn things in their favor. So Exileh, he can't get one shot. He would have died to PowerOfEvil if that ulti was not there. And then Alphari's forced to TP down, but now you've alleviated that pressure mid, and there's a fight happening down bot.
Samux just kills IgNar. It looks like IgNar overstepped, maybe got caught up in a stun lock there. Hylissang actually used the Glacial Fissure and Concussive Blow, so that will be why IgNar died with his flash still up.
Ha!
Indeed, and Vedius, I actually think this brings us on to our next discussion point, the bot lane. In the first game, Hylissang was able to get ahead with a couple of kills, and Samux, we said we wanted to see more from him. We wanted to see more from Hylissang. This seems to be a step in the right direction for the Unicorns of Love.
Bad game 1 for the Unicorns of Love, but it seems to be getting better for them in game 2. Naturally, they would be pushed back by a Tristana and a Rakan. Not only is there a lot of all-in potential early on, but they also have a lot of wave clear that Samux and Hylissang would struggle to deal with. So the CS deficit is expected, but now we can just have a quick look at how the replay did in fact happen. So they tried to punish an overextended Hylissang, but you're a very squishy Rakan early on. Add to the fact that there was an exhaust on top of Hylissang and an ignite on IgNar. But the moment Samux joined the fight, their damage output was just straight up stronger. So Samux used his E, the burst is too much, and they end up getting that kill. So well played from the bottom lane of the Unicorns.
Exileh has a bit of a hodgepodge of items here, Vedius. A Doran Shield, a Dark Seal, a Corrupting Potion, Boots of Speed, Cloth Armor, Ruby Crystal. Where's he going? What's he doing with all of these different items?
So, at first, he wanted the health. Oh, hang on. Here's that push in mid that we were talking about earlier on.
Knockback from Maxlore, the stun lock, and that's a kill. Maxlore secures it.
That was beautiful, Medic. And Medic, I feel like what we were talking about just happened in the middle lane.
You're so smart. You are so smart.
I'll stop it, because we've got to fight down bot.
Hylissang does get locked up as Hylissang has to just jump away for the time being. IgNar there as well. Xerxe looking to see if he can catch someone out. The Blade Caller brings Hylissang back, roots him up for the time being. IgNar does have the quickness. Hylissang has flash if he needs to get out of a fight in a hurry.
Now, Misfits bottom lane survived that engagement. Xerxe, he's still preparing his jump, and here it comes.
But Hylissang can just leap away, and IgNar's safe as well. The Unicorns of Love have been able to turn back a little bit of the pressure that Misfits had in the first game, but it's not a dominant performance. We have to remember, it doesn't seem like it, but Misfits got first tower mid, and that puts them 3,000 gold ahead.
Yes, it does. Looking very good for Misfits in the early game. They've played exactly towards the win condition that they needed to. Get the Lucian ahead, take down the mid tier 1, and start playing around the rest of the map. Now let's see where they put this Lucian, because you can't just suddenly send him off to a side lane, right? It wouldn't make sense to have your AD carry and support in mid. What are they going to do there? There's no objectives left for them to play around. So ideally what you want is you push mid, and then you have Maxlore and PowerOfEvil move together. Set up for a dragon, maybe set up for the Rift Herald, maybe set up for a tower in the bottom lane or in the top lane. You have so many options, but the idea is that you're always forcing Kassadin to wave clear in mid, while your Lucian can move around the map and use his gold lead to either play for objectives or start a little skirmish that you know you're going to win.
PoE and Maxlore were on a ward there, which is the reason that they had to back away. And I want to come back to that bottom lane because Hylissang had a stellar performance in Game 1. Vedius absolutely dominated his opposition on this Tristana. Has picked it up once again here. Look at that, 40% of the team's damage. Don't expect the numbers to be as big this game, but he's still in a position where he can carry.
Well, it could very well be. Remember that Tristana's true strength comes from scaling. And while he did get a good start, that doesn't mean that he can't finish in a similar fashion. 12-0-1, if Fantasy was still going on, you'd be in a very good position. But unfortunately for me, who had Hylissang on his team, that is no longer the case. I actually failed abysmally at
I put
Fantasy.
too much hope in Dignitas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I also had someone who got all the members of Fnatic.
Oh, right.
Which was great fun to play against. It's like, how many points did you get? Oh, only 700 this week. It's not that good at all. Misfits Academy looking for the Mountain Drake. Still sitting on that vision, though, and they're not even using the sweeper here. Maxlore does have it. Unicorns of Love are going to collapse. The Stand United coming in. The Unicorns want to fight. Misfits knocked back. Winter's Bite as well. Here comes the counter TP from Alphari. He has the equalizer. The Misfits just want the Dragon for the time being. The Unicorns not ready to give it up just quite yet, but they do have to. And the Mountain Drake goes to the Misfits.
Now, what this means is that Xerxe still has his teleport while Alphari had to use his. It is an objective gained by Misfits, but the Unicorns forced Misfits into an uncomfortable situation because, remember, ideally, they just want to use PowerOfEvil and Maxlore to be taking those kind of objectives. But we want to keep Alphari up in the top so we can keep scaling, keep Tristana still scaling down in the bottom lane. But because Unicorns grouped up and they said, no, 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 we have a Shen ulti, we know we can force you to react, they're able to at least put a little bit more pressure onto Misfits. And I think the decision was the best case scenario for the Unicorns of Love in that instance.
15 minutes in, Misfits do still have about a 3,500 gold lead. They haven't moved PoE into a side lane yet, but they are starting to complete this first wave of items. A Leandri's Torment in for Alphari up in the top lane, and a Blade of the Ruin King for PowerOfEvil.
Now, what we'll see here is the Hylissang and IgNar have been moved up into the top lane. UOL's bot has to instantly swap, and with Dragon gone, that's why. It's because that they realized that having those duo, very strong, powerful setup for taking down these neutral objectives. And so they've even moved Alphari up here as well. This is a clean map movement for Misfits. They're playing the map beautifully right now. They have strong control of the mid lane. They've been able to take the first Drake. They've got the Rift Tower to easily siege for the next tower that they want. But UOL, they're going for an all-in. Here comes Xerxe.
Winter's Bite does not connect, and Xerxe backs away. The Misfits have had that strong early game, what we wanted to see from them, but they are still keeping PoE in that mid lane. He's not gone to a side lane yet, Vedius.
That's fine though. You just want to keep him pushing onto Exile and then move him around the map. You just have to be careful because Kassadin is still someone who will ramp up over time, but the Rod of Age is already completed. He's going to be working towards either a Lichbane or a Zhonya's. I feel like in this instance, Zhonya's would make the most sense. You want to get that bonus armor, it'll give you a nice little bit of burst. It'll give you slightly weaker 1v1 trading, but aside from that, it has more teamfight value, and I think that that's what UOL should play towards right now, teamfight.
PowerOfEvil looking for the trade, the Cullen comes out, Exile has the flash, PoE flashes forward
Ignite's
with the Ignite! Oh, he gets him! That's the reason he tops the charts as a mid laner. PoE with the solo kill in mid.
Impressive performance there. Good calculations from PowerOfEvil, knowing how much damage the Ignite would do. With the Grievous wounds on, Exile couldn't heal enough. And even still, Exile, he's gone for early armor boots. Too little, too late. And look at the pressure the Misfits now have. Exile did not want that to happen. I mean, dying is bad, but dying on a Kassadin to a Lucian is even worse.
And dying 4 times is even worse.
Yeah, wow, I didn't realize he's died 4 times. Wow, okay, so that's, as you rightly said, even worse for him. So, PowerOfEvil, the thing about Lucian mid is a while back, he had some mana nerfs to his Q, which hurt him, but if you land all of your abilities, it doesn't matter. What does the mana nerfs matter? When you have the deeps.
And the Null Sphere, of course, is a magic damage shield, so you can't use that for effective trade in the mid lane. Misfits have been able to continue with this early lead, but they haven't really extended it too far, Vedius. They're winning out in the mid lane. Where do they go next? What are the rotations we want to see them making?
I want to see them move up top. They need to defend this tower. IgNar and Hansama shouldn't be losing to this now. Maxlore, along with PowerOfEvil, are on their way.
And Alphari still just walking up from the bottom lane. Has the teleport now, so actually it's almost off cooldown, whereas Xerxe has Stand United and the TP if a fight was to erupt. The game slowed down a little bit, Vedius, and we said in Picks and Bans that Unicorns of Love would like a little bit more scaling and like a little bit more time to get into the game, but you do need to be able to survive and actually get the farm, as we see Exileh is 50 CS behind in the middle lane.
Yeah, the Unicorns of Love, they still have that scaling option left. Their late game is still very strong, and I can't remember who exactly the Unicorns of Love played against, but what I do remember was that Exileh was on a Kassadin. He was extremely far behind during the laning phase, and then afterwards, he got one kill in a bad team fight played by the opposition, and then all of a sudden, he became overfed, they won the game. So I wouldn't count them out as a plays happening top.
Quickness used by IgNar, the tower there, the TP coming in will come through. The Unicorns of Love want this fight, but Alphari's joined the fray. There's the equalizer as well. Misfits, 1-for-1 trade. Hylissang down as well, and now it's Xerxe and Exileh all by themselves. Xerxe nowhere to be seen, Exile's dead. Xerxe running away from 4 members of Misfits. IgNar cannot land the grand entrance, and the Unicorns fall 1 by 1 in the top lane.
It looked like a promising setup for the Unicorns. Samux, he bought so much time for Xerxe to join the fight. And you'd think that with the Shen there, with the tower still up, with the Kassadin TPing into UOL, they can find a way to turn this fight in their favor. But no, a beautiful flanking TP from Alphari shuts down Samux. Exileh, he doesn't have the damage to be able to win a fight once the AD carry is gone at this point in the game. And so Misfits, they come out the victors. They use the Rift Tower because it's just about to run out anyway to get a bit of damage done onto tier 2. They don't want to stick around. They're going to go back to base. But here, look at this. The initiation comes out from IgNar. And you think, oh, Samux, he's going to die here. But no, he gets the Shen ulti, he's fine, and then a great TP flank from Alphari. Once he joins, along with PowerOfEvil, those who can clean up the backline, Maxlore can keep the front line busy while the rest of his team comes to the setup. And while Hansama loses his life, his team is there to compensate. Great team fight from Misfits, recognizing that even with a Shen ulti on the enemy team, they can still come out ahead.
And you can see Xerxe just wasn't there for that fight. No disruption coming out from the Zac, was unable to join his teammates. And it definitely cost them a lot. Misfits playing to these mid-game spikes, playing to these power spikes that we talked about in Picks and Bans.
And I just want to give this opportunity to praise Maxlore.
I thought you were going to praise yourself. My predictions were on point. I said what was going to happen.
No, I want to praise Maxlore because when I was prepping and when I was reviewing the past Misfits games, one of the big notes that I wrote was that Maxlore does nothing in the early game. Because when Maxlore came, a lot of people, us included, were like, he's actually very similar to Kakao, arguably a little weaker in terms of his mechanical skill, but he offers other things to make up for it. And then when you look back at his last 2 weeks, he was barely doing anything in terms of the early game. He wasn't offering any early pressure, he wasn't exerting any kind of ganks, even on early game champions. And in this game, there was so much focus on him being able to get his mid laner ahead. He had to start the snowball for PowerOfEvil, and he did just that. In game 1, his Zac was extremely important in terms of initiations and setup for the rest of his team, and he's done it. And now he's gotten PowerOfEvil fed enough that he's able to get another solo kill.
PowerOfEvil showing us why he is so consistent. This Lucian performance has been absolutely devastating by him. And coming back to your Maxlore point as well, Vedius, it's not just the jungler. Sometimes they work in coordination with their support, Vedius, and in the last game you discussed a few facts. We'll look at this after this fight.
Yeah, so I'm excited to hear about your facts because
great facts.
Yeah, I mean, like, all we pretty much saw here was Xerxe being like, if I land the taunt, he's underneath the tower, he can die. But PowerOfEvil, he doesn't look, I don't know, it's not an explosion. He doesn't look at men as they burn alive. He chooses to walk away. That's a little morbid. Let's move on. So, what fun stuff?
PowerOfEvil. Yes, let's talk about the support and the jungle duo. Because, Vedius, you said, you know, Maxlore and IgNar, they don't play together enough.
They don't.
Kakao and IgNar play together so much more. They're so much better. Hylissang's going to get caught out of the exhaust. We're not going to care about that back. The stun lock onto PoE. He tries to dodge away, but Exile's there to get the shutdown, his second kill of the game.
You're really trying hard to deliver
this quick stat. We'll do it another game. Screw it, Vedius.
Unicorns of Love will not let you. Bit of a greedy back place there from PowerOfEvil. He gets punished for it. Now it's second death of the game, ruining his KDA.
Misfits do still have a 5,000 gold lead here, Vedius. 23 minutes in. We haven't hit the infamous Unicorns of Love 25-minute mark, but they want to start it a little bit early this game. They're going for the Baron. 4 members of the Misfits here to try and contest an equalizer as well.
But their damage is all gone. PowerOfEvil isn't here. Misfits, they just have to disengage.
Hylissang, the front line, the equalizer perfectly placed as Misfits do manage to disengage. And the Unicorns of Love unable to get anything out of that fight.
That was actually an amazing ultimate from Alphari. I thought that he might go more towards the backline, but instead he just layers it down on the path with which Unicorns of Love want to chase Misfits. And Misfits, they don't force a fight. They only have to lose one ultimate, and Unicorns get no kills. So really good stuff there from Alphari and the rest of Misfits to recognize it is not worth going for that fight.
And Alphari's performed so well throughout these last 2 games. We were in our research beforehand, we were saying he hadn't stepped up to the performance we expected from him. He wasn't this top lane solo carry that we wanted him to be as PoE gets some damage back onto Exileh. He can't even jump away. It's just unfair as PoE will eventually...
He can actually get out of this. Oh no, he's got
no mana at all. PoE should be able to secure this kill. There is a blue buff on Exileh to keep him healthy, but here comes IgNar. He's just going to ignite him and walk away. Jumps in, grand entrance. Exileh trying to get a little bit more CS.
Get him!
He gets him. He gets him in the end. 5, 2, and 3 now on that Lucian.
I don't think Kassadin can 1v1 PowerOfEvil.
I get that impression as well.
Yeah, it feels like that you can't send Exileh off onto a side lane because he's going to die. Now, 5 members of Misfits are grouped on the top side. They're looking towards this Baron.
Hylissang forced back by Summer and Maxlore. Lots of damage coming down. The knockup as well with the Keeper's Verdict and the Charm, the quickness. PoE, another kill for him, and the Misfits will turn their eyes towards the Baron.
Misfits are looking so good in this series. In game 1, they just wanted the scaling. They wanted to play it passive. They found a couple of good early kills because their bottom lane overperformed and punished the mistakes. Now they've had a great early game and they're going for the Baron.
Xerxe looking for the jump in with a knockback. He lets bounce as Chachi joins the fray. A good taunt onto 2. Passive used onto Xerxe. UOL will lose 1 and they'll lose a 2nd as Xerxe goes down. The Misfits team fighting has been sublime throughout this series.
Gotta be honest, Medic, it's much easier when it's 5v3. Unicorns of Love had to try, though. They had to try and stop this Baron, but Misfits are too far ahead. They are too strong, and they clean up the Unicorns.
They have an 8,000 gold lead and they are still in this mid-game spike that we wanted to see them utilize.
So here we have the setup. This is the second half of the fight. They've already lost their mid laner. Unicorns have already lost their support. And the best they can hope for is that they can go for a steal, or maybe they can get a kill onto Maxlore so there's no smite. But unfortunately for UOL, they get 0.
Teleport was cancelled as well. Exileh deciding he didn't want to join that fight after everyone else had died.
Man, who'd have thought that if you put a bunny and a unicorn in a cage, the bunny would be beaten up on that unicorn?
Have you never watched Monty Python?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Exactly. Unicorns need a holy hand grenade, otherwise they are not going to win this fight.
And they need to read the ancient incantation in order to
What was the
activate
ancient incantation?
Oh,
it was about how much you have to count to. It's like you must count to 3.
Oh, yes.
4 is too far. 6 is right out. You know what else is right out? The Unicorns of Love chances of winning this game. They are 8,000 gold behind at the 26-minute mark. I just made a prediction. No.
Whoa. Yeah, but you didn't tweet about it. You know this. We already talked about this. Scaling. So casters, you've always got to go there, right? They've got the late game. That's what they've still got left in their pockets. Look at the items. They've completed 2, Medic. There's still the possibility of them getting 1 good fight. That's all they need to stall out. And then when they reach the 35 minutes, then maybe they can win. But it'll take a while to get there, and it really
Probably take about 8 minutes to
It
get
will
to
take
35
8 minutes, you're quite right. And in those 8 minutes, Misfits will be sieging on the base.
And PoE knows to check the bushes as well. He's been burnt before. He notices that Samux and Hylissang are off the map, pops the culling down, and Hylissang just loses half his health. Even with the Unbreakable, PowerOfEvil will be able to get another tower off this push for the Misfits, and they will be 10,000 gold ahead at the 27-minute mark. And if they win this game, Vedius, you have to remember they're only 1 game away from semi-finals once again, and from knocking the Unicorns of Love out of playoffs.
Yes, that's very true. But you know who else was 1 game away from making it?
Who?
KT. KT was 1 game away. So you never know what could happen, is the point I'm trying to make here. If Unicorns, they do fall short here, it's the best of 5, the miracles, the reverse sweep. Cloud9 is probably the most legendary when it comes to reverse sweeps. Misfits themselves got a reverse sweep in spring against Splice. They're not common, but they happen. And when you're going up against the Unicorn, those guys definitely know how to fight back. But let's see if Misfits can even close this game out, because they will look to take that first inhibitor.
Inhibitor in mid will fall lower as the Misfits push forward with the Baron buff. 40 seconds remaining on it. They're just waiting until Hylissang can step forward once again. This will be the inhibitor falling and then sent PowerOfEvil down to a separate lane, but Xerxe jumps in. Step of Presence knocks him back. Misfits able to disengage and then use the Talisman to bring these 4 members down to join up with PoE. Xayah still split pushing. The Baron buff about to run out. Misfits want another inhibitor off this if they can. It's a 4v5, the stun lock on Hylissang, the Stand United Unbreakable. He goes down before Xayah can join, and now Xerxe's in the midst. A great route, let's bounce, but he just brings all of Misfits into the rest of his team. Misfits, a triple kill for Alphari, the inhibitor, and perhaps the game.
Misfits look so clean in game 2. 15-4 is the scoreline. Xayah only now arrives.
Exileh is able to kill IgNar, but Alphari unkilled this game has been a dominant force for Misfits. They'll take the first Nexus tower, and they decide to back away. A 13,000 gold lead, but they're not willing to throw this game at the Nexus towers.
They're a little too afraid of the Ninja and the Void Walker right now. They're going to be forced to disengage, but they can be happy. They won another fight. They got 2 inhibs. Their only options left now are to group up top, push down the tower, maybe take a Drake as an added benefit.
It's their second Infernal of the game as well. 30 minutes in, double Infernal, double Mountain, double AD carry, triple items on both of them. Misfits are looking pretty darn close to going 2-0 up.
So let's have a look. We're now moving to the bottom lane. The Shen comes through. Hylissang can't survive long enough for Xayah to join the fight. That means Maxlore's able to get away. Xerxe drags the entire enemy team onto his own team. Allows Alphari to get a triple kill. No Penta for him, though.
One day. Alphari has been such a good performer this game, though, and in the last game. He has done such a good job, and Unicorns of Love do manage to get IgNar off the back of it. But
if they killed Exileh there, they probably could have ended the game, but with him getting a little bit more health back, a lot of mana being run out, they don't want to risk it. Might want to add level 18 PowerOfEvil, 30 minutes into the game. That is a very fast level 18, for those that might not know.
Both top laners still only level 16, and they've barely been in the fights.
And Exileh only just got level 16, so that's a lot of damage just from raw stats.
And then from his items as well. Blade of the Ruin King, Maw of Malmortius, Black Cleaver, Phantom Dancer. Could you want anything else? Look at the amount of control wards, Vedius. If the Fishio was here, that was all he'd be talking about.
Well, no, what he'd be talking about is the Doran shield that's still on Hansama, rather than buying a control ward. But I suppose he could argue, oh, well, all my other teams got it, and I carried last game, so...
That is true. Unicorns of Love with a control ward of their own, trying to catch out PoE. He comes around the corner, straight into the face of Exileh and the face of Xayah, but a knockback from Maxlore. Hylissang puts down the Glacial Fissure, and the Unicorns, with the engage they want, cannot kill a single member of Misfits.
They wanted to try and catch PowerOfEvil out, but it was only a Shen and a Kassadin. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough damage, especially with Maxlore just around the corner to provide the peel necessary. He's just going to vamp that back up, and now they're grouping up top. They just have to wait for the 2 minion waves of supers to push down as they look to take down that final inhibitor tower. They may even go for the Baron. There is the risk, though, that UOL could challenge them and steal it away.
Misfits perhaps looking for the final push of the game. 13,000 gold lead. They have looked in control from basically minute 3 after that first blood in the mid lane. The Unicorns unable to respond, but do have scaling on their side. Xayah jumps in, Hylissang there, puts the wall up, divides his team from the Misfits, but the inhibitor tower will fall, and Misfits want the final inhibitor.
Oh, Unicorns of Love, their backs are against the wall once more. We're not seeing any of the classic Unicorns in game 1 that tried to go for something a little bit more early game. They can't make it work out. Game 2, they try to go more conventional and they go a little bit more late game. And once again, it doesn't work out. And the things that they've been working on over the last few weeks, the changes that they say they have been making, so far are just not coming to fruition because Misfits just seem to always find an answer.
Xerxe jumps in, can't steal away the Baron. Misfits secure it. IgNar jumps onto the back line. There's the equalizer as well. A double knock-up. Exileh trying to get onto any member of Misfits that he can find, but Alphari's godlike, as are the rest of the Misfits. Summer kills Exileh. Samux chucks down some feathers, but they're going to do no damage at all to Misfits, and the Unicorns of Love just trying to retreat up towards the top side of the map. PowerOfEvil's not going to let them get away. Hylissang dead. Samux gone as well. Misfits with the ace, 20 kills to 5. The Nexus towers fall, and this will be the game for the Misfits. They have looked authoritative throughout this win, throughout this series, and they will be one game away from the semi-finals and from Paris.
The Misfits fans are still supporting their team. At the start of the day, we heard a lot of Unicorns lovers being very vocal about their support for the team. But so far, Unicorns have not been able to match up to the pressure of Misfits. It has been a dominant series in the favor of the Rabbits for the time being. And the Unicorns, well, they're still trying to find their footing, which is ironic considering they have 4 of them.
Rabbits do as well, though.
That's true.
And Rabbits are better on slopes, so maybe that's what's happening here. Perhaps a little bit of tilt entering the mines. The Unicorns, however, have come back from this sort of position before. They are a team that thrives on controversy and on difficult situations. You cannot count them out until you see that final Nexus fall, Vedius.
And the big thing for me is that both these teams had that plan. This is the best possible year, or one of the best years, or maybe even the best year for the Unicorns of Love since their inception. And they felt like this was their year to make it to Worlds. They made it to the finals last split. They looked really strong in their own group, ending the regular season after defeating H2K. They thought, their fans thought, a lot of people thought that this could be one of the representatives for Europe at Worlds. And Misfits are now standing in their way and saying, we want it too, and we're willing to fight you for it.
Misfits Gaming continue to dominate in this series. Let's hear from our analysts for more on their win.
Well, that man on your screen, right there, PowerOfEvil against his ex-team, where it all started for him. He showed up. We talked about how is there a second carry for Misfits outside of PowerOfEvil. Well, they didn't need one this game, even though all the rest of the team... Maxlore, Alphari did well. Everyone did really good. And let's take a look at the picks and bans. And I know we often say, well, it's results-based analysis if we say who wins the draft. But I can vouch for the fact that everyone here agreed that Misfits had a really, really good draft. So, Jesses, what exactly stood out to you about Misfits' draft here?
I think, at least from my point of view, I think the biggest thing was that they took away Rakan when Unicorns first picked Xayah. I think taking away, putting Hylissang on these non-playmaking champions is a super great strategy. It seems to be working really well. I think when Hylissang isn't making any of these plays, it just seems like they're losing almost everywhere. And that was really just the case of this game.
Yeah. I also want to highlight that Xerxe fell into his own trap. He started playing Poppy against things like Zac because he wanted to make Zac useless in teamfights.
Maybe he didn't expect anyone to pick it up.
Probably didn't expect it because he took the Zac very early in this draft, and Maxlore responded with the Poppy, made sure the Zac could never really have much impact. And then, of course, the big one in the mid lane. Caps, what happened there?
I think Exileh's champion pool is maybe a bit lackluster. Once you ban out the LeBlanc, it's kind of hard for Exileh. There was also the Syndra ban, I can see. And both of these champions are like fine in solution, but since both of them are gone, he looked kind of lost in draft, and he ended up with the Kassadin, which people consider Lucian a hard counter. It is playable, but the problem is she will get pushed in all the time, and especially when Poppy has priority over Zac, they were able to just run around and dive him over and over again.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at a couple of replays. Good, you mentioned that. The jungle proximity of the enemy of Maxlore in his mid lane was through the roof. Maxlore said, I am not going to let you do anything in this lane, basically, as we see the mid laners there thinking about what happened.
We couldn't show the first one.
And of course, we called out Exileh a lot this split about his high deaths per game, and that has been better. It had been in decline, but this game, in combination with PowerOfEvil, with this good matchup and the jungle pressure, was just so awful for the Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things Exileh could have done during the dives, like if you time your flash with the charge from Poppy or your jump with Kassadin later, probably will stay alive in at least one of the cases, but once you already sit on the Kassadin, you're pretty doomed when the enemy jungler can dive you that easily. And I don't even know as a team if there's anything you can do to save him there. Do you just call for the jungler to come bot lane instead and say like, come, let's just try and get a kill down here and that's it?
Yeah, I think, especially when you have 3 losing lanes, I think it's super hard to play as a jungler, especially when enemy jungler is just all up in your face and the lanes are up in your face as well. You just have to do some desperate ganks and try and snowball one lane, and didn't really seem too possible. I think Misfits split really well though, like pushing vision and controlling like both jungles, all 4 quadrants basically, and just keeping track of Xerxe all game basically.
Yeah, that was now 2 games in a row that Misfits take in this quarterfinal. And if you take a look at the post-game breakdown, we also have to start thinking about Game 3 because it could be all over for the Unicorns of Love. And Misfits have only won 1 series versus the playoff teams the entire split. They could match that record if they now beat the Unicorns of Love. But I've been particularly impressed with how they've been playing. Caps, what do the Unicorns of Love do from here?
It's pretty hard because I feel like they just got outdrafted really hard both games. Especially this game, that it felt like there was nothing they could do. I'm not sure if they can even fix the problem though, because it's not necessarily about like picking the right champions. It's also about the being able to play the right champions. And I think Vizicsacsi and Exileh have some really big champion pool heroes. And it's not something you can just fix from game to game.
Yeah, it is also interesting to me that it's coming up now because Unicorns of Love have kind of always had, they've been outdrafted and still won games, right? This split. So why do you think Misfits were able to control them so well? They didn't really fall in the trap of the team fights that they couldn't win. They didn't really, you know, let the magic of the Unicorns so-called happen, or the clutch moments.
I mean, I think game 1, Misfits had the better late game draft already, so there was a very low chance they would actually struggle in the late game. Game 2 with the Kassadin, it was just so one-sided in the early game that it was almost impossible for it even to go late game. So I think if you are Unicorns of Love, like one thing Caps mentioned during the game was maybe it's time to just go Vladimir. Like literally just YOLO to Vladimir just because you need late game.
It usually works for them, I guess.
And then they have to hope that Misfits in a game 3 will struggle to close out the game. But it doesn't look like Misfits are going to struggle here with actually finishing the games. So if you are going to play the old Unicorn style, you need super strong late game team fights. And of course, then you can't fall too far behind early. And I'm not even sure it's possible anymore for them.
We didn't try and speak that much about Exileh dying a lot and this and that, but it seems like we're always going back to that, because why aren't we mentioning someone like Vizicsacsi? Why don't they try and make him the big carry in the game? Or is it because of the draft? They can't give him priority anyway, so they never really can put all their marbles in Vizicsacsi.
I feel like they're all kind of trying to escape, like trying to avoid the problem in a way. It feels like it's very obvious to them all that they're all putting in, at least everyone except Exileh maybe, they're all like, well, I'm putting my part, I don't have to do more. And I feel like at this point, I mean, they're 0-2 down, and someone on that team needs to do something, either Vizicsacsi or Hylissang. I feel like either of them need to just do something to have a winning side and have a side that they can play to, but yeah.
Could this be a game where Vizicsacsi goes for something like Renekton to try and get an early game jungler, play around top side, and then say, you know what, we need to just stomp one lane completely, and then see if they can actually run away with the game. They had that one really good early game against Splice, where it was like full late game comp from Splice's side, where they actually managed to shut it down, but that was one game from them. It might be something like that they have to do. It's either full-on late game and hope Misfits doesn't close out the game, or you need super strong early game where you play around. Probably not mid lane. But
well, I didn't think we were going to be talking about this match in this manner after 2 games. Misfits, they were worse at closing out games before. They were worse at coming back in games, but now they seem to be better at everything for now. Misfits looking very, very promising and are looking to start their run for the trophy tonight against Unicorns of Love. Game 3 is coming up in just a couple of minutes. Stick around.